he inherited an old ranch and found 7 widows waiting with his picture. Jace Orion had never imagined that a letter could change his life so completely. He had been living in a small, crowded apartment on the dusty planet of Tarnus IV, where sunlight barely reached through the thick smog of the city's factories. Farming, or anything related to open land, was a distant dream in a place where buildings scraped the clouds and streets hummed with hover cars. Then the letter came, stamped with the emblem of a law office on a distant planet called Red Mesa. The words were simple but shocking. You have inherited the Orion Ranch. Jace had no memory of any ranch in his family. He did not even know of any relatives left in the galaxy. And yet, a voice in the back of his mind whispered that perhaps this was more than a simple inheritance. Perhaps this was his chance to escape the crowded life he had always known. Packing his belongings was easier than expected. He left behind the apartment, the noisy streets, and the constant hum of machines. His only companions were a small backpack, a worn-out jacket, and a mixture of excitement and nervousness he could not shake. The journey to Red Mesa would take several days by shuttle, and he spent them staring at the stars outside the small porthole window, imagining the wide-open landscapes he had only seen in old holovids. When he finally landed, the sight of Red Mesa took his breath away. Unlike the industrial planets he had known, Red Mesa was a desert world, with rolling red sands, sharp cliffs, and skies that stretched endlessly overhead. The wind was dry and warm, carrying the scent of dust and something faintly metallic. And in the distance, almost hidden by a low ridge, stood the Orion Ranch. It was smaller than he had imagined, more like an old settlement than the vast ranches he had seen in holovids. The wooden buildings were weathered, their paint faded, and the fences leaned slightly under the weight of years. But there was a strange charm about it, a quiet strength, a feeling that the ranch had been waiting for him. He drove the hover truck slowly down the winding dirt path that led to the main house, and then as he crested the last hill, he saw them. 7 women stood in a line on the porch. They were all looking directly at him, their expressions serious but calm. Each one held a small framed photograph of him, or more accurately, of a man who looked exactly like him. Jace froze. His mouth opened, then closed. The wind tugged at his jacket, and the women did not move. Who are you?" he finally asked, his voice almost a whisper. "We've been waiting for you, Jace Orion," said the woman in the center, her hair silver like the starlight and her eyes sharp with clarity. "We have stories to tell. Stories about the man you were or the man you will become." "I don't understand. I've never been here before." "I don't know any of you. We know," another woman interrupted, stepping forward. She had a calm presence, like the desert wind itself. "And that is why we are here. The ranch has chosen you. We are here to help you understand it." Abused, Jace shook his head, trying to grasp the situation. "Chosen me? The ranch chooses people?" The women exchanged small, knowing glances, as if this conversation had been repeated many times over the years. "Yes," the first woman said. "Orion Ranch is not like other ranches. It has secrets. And those secrets were meant for you." He swallowed hard, feeling both fear and excitement. He had dreamed of leaving the city, of finding open space, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. 7 strangers each claiming he belonged to something he didn't even understand. The woman in the center stepped closer and held out a hand, but Jace noticed it wasn't an ordinary hand. There was a faint glow along the edges of her fingers, like light reflected from some hidden tech. "The man in these pictures," she said, "was part of something greater than himself. The ranch, it has always been more than land and buildings. It is a hub, a place of innovation, of hope, of connection. And now it is waiting for you to take your place." Jace's heart raced. The portraits they carried were all slightly different. In some, he wore clothes he didn't recognize. In others, he held tools, gadgets, or even starship models he had never seen before. And yet the face staring back at him was his own. "Why do you have my picture?" he asked, voice trembling slightly. I've never met any of you." Each woman answered in turn, but their stories did not align. One said she had been a caretaker of livestock on the ranch decades ago. Another said she had been a friend to the original Jace Orion, a brilliant man who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Another insisted she had once relied on him to save her from a financial collapse. "Wait," Jace interrupted, feeling dizzy. "All of this, it happened before I was born. How is this even possible?" The women smiled faintly, as if this question had been asked many times. "The Orion line has always had a connection with the land," the first woman said, "and sometimes That connection brings people back in ways that are hard to explain. The ranch has a way of calling its owners when the time is right. It was quiet now, the wind rustling through the dry grass, the building standing silently under the sun. There was nothing threatening, nothing terrifying, only a sense of anticipation, as if the land itself was waiting for him to step into his role. The woman with the glowing fingers gestured toward the main house. "Come," she said. "There is much to show you, and you must see it all before the sun sets." He followed them cautiously. Inside the house, he found evidence of a life he had never lived. Old tools neatly arranged on shelves, holographic records tucked behind dusty panels, and notes that spoke of farming innovations and star-mapped deliveries across planets. Everything seemed ordinary, yet extraordinary. "Why was I chosen?" Jace asked again, trying to make sense of the sudden changes in his life.
The woman smiled. "Because, Jace, you are ready."
"You carry the bloodline, and the ranch, it waits for those who can listen, who can understand, and who can care." By the time the sun dipped behind the jagged cliffs of Red Mesa, Jace realized that his life had changed forever. He didn't understand what lay ahead, but he knew one thing clearly. This ranch, these women, and the mysterious man in the photographs were tied together in a story that was far bigger than he had ever imagined. For the first time in his life, Jace Orion felt the pull of destiny, not as a burden, but as a calling. And as the stars began to blink awake over the desert, he felt the quiet hum of the ranch beneath his feet, as if it were alive, welcoming him home. The 7 women gathered on the porch once more, watching him silently. Jace didn't know what to say, or what would happen next, but he could feel it. This was only the beginning, and whatever the Orion Ranch held, it was waiting for him to uncover its secrets. The next morning, Jace woke to the soft glow of the Red Mesa sun spilling across the wooden floor of the main house. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, painted in orange and gold, the wind carrying a quiet hum across the plains. For a moment, he allowed himself to breathe and imagine a life here, free, wide, and full of possibilities. But the moment was brief. As soon as he stepped onto the porch, he saw the 7 women waiting for him, each with a different expression. Some smiled faintly, others looked serious, and one, he realized later, simply watched him quietly, her eyes full of questions she hadn't yet asked. "We have much to show you," said the woman with the glowing fingers from yesterday. "The ranch is not as simple as it looks, and there are stories you must hear." He still felt like a visitor in someone else's life, but curiosity pressed him forward. "Stories?" he asked. "About the ranch, or about me?" It is impossible to separate one from the other. They began walking toward the far side of the ranch, past weathered barns and fences that creaked under the desert wind. Jace noticed strange objects scattered across the fields, metallic structures he could not identify at first. Some looked like windmills, but their blades were made of shining crystal. Others resembled large glass spheres, reflecting the desert sun. "What are those?" he asked. "These are the tools of the original rancher Orion," said the oldest woman among them. He experimented with new ways to farm the land. Some worked, some did not. But all of it was meant to be useful to the person who inherited the ranch. Jace stopped at one of the structures, a large sphere resting on 3 metallic legs. As he touched it, the surface glowed faintly, and a holographic projection appeared, displaying a map of the ranch and small points that moved like stars. "It's alive?" he asked in awe. "In a way," said the woman with the glowing fingers. "The ranch remembers. It stores memories of what happened here, the people who worked here, and even the livestock. It watches, waits, and protects what belongs to Orion." Jace stepped back, astonished. He had grown up with computers and artificial intelligence, but this felt different, like the ranch itself had a soul. They reached the main barn, and one of the widows gestured toward the entrance. "Inside," she said, "you will find the logs. They tell the story of the man you were shown in the photographs." Inside the barn, Jace discovered shelves filled with thin, glowing strips, records that, when scanned, displayed holographic images and messages. He picked up one and saw the familiar face from the photograph. The man was busy in the fields, talking to workers, checking machines, and laughing. Yet in some clips, he held strange devices, sending messages across planets, and sometimes he looked directly at the camera, smiling as if he knew it would one day belong to Jace. One of the women explained, "These logs were meant to guide you. Each widow kept a portion of the story, but only together do they show the full truth." Jace's mind raced. Wait, the women kept these records? Yes, the woman said. "We were entrusted to watch over the ranch and its mysteries. Each of us knew a piece of Orion's life. Each of us loved him in some way, though none of us were married to him in the traditional sense. He touched our lives, and we promised to protect what he created." He looked at them, suddenly realizing why each held his picture. "So, you didn't know me? You were waiting for me to inherit, to understand?" "Exactly," the woman said softly. "And now you are here." They spent the morning showing him the ranch's hidden technologies. Some were practical: machines that automatically watered crops, drones that scanned the soil, devices that monitored livestock health. Others were more mysterious: holographic maps of the galaxy, encrypted logs of past communications, and a small room filled with tools that seemed capable of building anything Jace could imagine. "This is incredible," he said, turning in circles. "But why me? Why now?" The oldest woman, her hair streaked with silver, sighed. "The original Orion. He disappeared years ago, leaving behind the ranch and these memories. He must have known that one day someone would come to continue his work. We did not know when or if it would be you, but the ranch chose correctly." Jace shook his head, feeling overwhelmed. "I don't even know anything about farming, or running a ranch, or all this technology. How could I possibly be ready?" The woman with glowing fingers smiled faintly. "Read the logs. Study the machines. Listen to us. The ranch does not demand perfection, only understanding. And you will grow into it, just as Orion did before you." By midday, Jace was exhausted but fascinated. The women led him to a small orchard behind the main house, where trees with silver leaves glimmered under the sun. "These are not ordinary trees," one widow said. "They are a product of Orion's experiments. They can survive the harsh desert, provide food, and even create energy for the ranch. Everything he did was a combination of care and invention." He touched one of the silver leaves, amazed at how soft it felt, almost like silk. "Tss. Alive, too, isn't it?" "In a way," she replied. "Everything on this ranch is connected. The land, the machines, the trees, the logs, they all work together, and now you are part of it." For a moment, silence settled over the group. The wind whispered across the plains, and the desert seemed almost to breathe. Jace looked at the women and realized that despite their differences, they shared a quiet strength. They were patient, wise, and loyal, not just to the man in the photographs, but to the ranch itself. "Tell me more," he said finally. "Tell me about him, about the original Orion. Why did he disappear? Why are you all here?" Each woman shared a fragment of the story. One said he had once saved a settlement from a severe drought by creating an irrigation system that still worked decades later. Taxi. Another said he had designed small hovercraft to help move supplies across the desert when roads failed. A third whispered about mysterious star maps he left behind, pointing to other planets where his experiments had continued. But their stories did not always match. Sometimes they contradicted each other, and sometimes they hinted at things that were impossible to verify. Jace realized that what they were describing was not just a ranch, but a legacy. A life of innovation, kindness, and mystery that had somehow waited for him to arrive. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, the 7 widows gathered around a small table in the orchard. Each placed a photograph of him in the center, forming a circle. "These," the woman with glowing fingers said, "are reminders. They show the man you will become if you are willing to learn. Each picture carries a lesson, a warning, or a memory. Study them, and remember we are here to help you understand them." Jace felt a strange warmth in his chest. The day had been overwhelming, yet he had never felt more alive. He realized that the ranch was more than land. It was a teacher, and the 7 women were guides, waiting for him to unlock the secrets that had been hidden for decades. He looked at the desert, at the glowing machines, at the silver-leaf trees, and finally at the women. "I don't understand all of it yet," he admitted. "But I want to learn. I want to understand Orion and the ranch and all of this." The women nodded, their faces softening with approval. "That is enough for now," the oldest said. "Tomorrow we will begin in earnest. You will learn about the ranch, its technology, and the stories hidden in its heart. And perhaps one day you will understand why it chose you." That night, as Jace lay on a simple cot in the main house, he stared at the stars through the open window. The desert wind whispered softly outside, carrying the scent of sand and metal. The ranch seemed quiet, yet alive, as if it were waiting for him to take the next step. He thought of the 7 women, each holding his photograph, each carrying a piece of the story he had yet to understand. and he realized that this inheritance was not just land or technology. It was a legacy, a challenge, a mystery. And for the first time in his life, Jace Orion felt the thrill of being exactly where he was meant to be. The next morning, Jace woke to a quiet house. The desert was painted in soft pinks and oranges as the sun rose, and the ranch seemed to hum with life, though he couldn't yet explain why. He had spent the night thinking about the 7 women, the glowing machines, and the strange photographs that had followed him since his arrival. Each picture seemed to whisper a story, a lesson, or a warning. He dressed quickly and stepped onto the porch, where the 7 women were already waiting. "Today," said the woman with the glowing fingers, "you will see the heart of the ranch." Jace followed them to a large, unassuming barn at the far end of the property. From the outside, it looked like any other storage building. But inside, the air felt cooler, almost alive. Dust swirled in the sunlight streaming through the cracks, and faint hums echoed from the walls. At the center of the barn stood a cylindrical device about the size of a person, covered in panels that shimmered faintly. A soft blue light pulsed from the top. "This," the oldest widow said, "is the memory core. It holds the life and knowledge of the original rancher Orion." Jace stepped closer, awe mixing with nervousness. "You mean it's like a computer?" "In a way," said the woman with silver streaks in her hair. "It holds not just information, but experiences, memories, lessons. And it is waiting for you to connect." "How do I connect?" he asked. One of the widows placed her hand gently on a panel. "You must trust the ranch. Trust yourself. The core will show you what it chooses, when it chooses, but once you start, there is no turning back." Jace hesitated. For a moment he thought of leaving, of returning to the simplicity of his old life. But he remembered the photographs, the stories, the glowing machines, and the way the ranch had seemed to hum under his feet. His curiosity won. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the smooth surface of the core. The blue light brightened, wrapping around his hand like a gentle pulse. For a moment, everything went dark. Then, the barn filled with holographic images. Jace gasped. He saw himself, or someone who looked exactly like him, walking through the ranch, fixing machines, tending livestock, and talking with people he had never met. He saw the 7 women, young and vibrant, helping the original Orion with the ranch. He saw star maps, glowing crystals, and strange inventions. This is incredible," he whispered. The woman with the glowing fingers smiled. "It is not just a record. It is a guide. Watch carefully." As Jace moved his hand slightly, the core shifted the projection. Now he saw the original Orion receiving messages from distant planets, solving problems no one else could, and creating new tools for farming, energy, and communication. He saw challenges, storms, equipment failures, and difficult decisions, and how Orion faced them with calm and ingenuity. Then the core shifted again. Jace's own face appeared, mirrored in the hologram. It was him, but older, more confident, handling tasks he had never imagined he could do. He looked at the ranch, the 7 women, and the desert, and a feeling of connection washed over him. "It's showing me, he asked. "Yes," said the oldest widow. "The ranch does not just remember the past. It shows the future you can create. It is teaching you, guiding you. You are Orion's heir, not just by blood, but by choice." Jace felt a mixture of awe and fear. "But what if I fail?" The woman with silver streaks shook her head gently. "Failure is not the concern. Learning is. The ranch only asks that you try, that you understand. It will help you if you let it." For the next few hours, Jace explored the core's projections. He learned how the original Orion had designed machines that could harvest crops efficiently, monitor weather patterns, and even purify water in the desert. He saw holographic maps of the stars, with lines connecting Red Mesa to distant planets where Orion had established outposts. But then, the core displayed something unexpected, a series of encrypted files, locked with layers of puzzles and codes. "What are these?" Jace asked, intrigued. "They are the most important secrets," the woman with glowing fingers explained. "Only the heir can unlock them. They contain Orion's vision for the future, plans that could change not just this ranch, but the entire region." Jace realized that the ranch's legacy was far bigger than he had imagined. It was not just a piece of land, it was a hub of knowledge, innovation, and hope. And now, the responsibility to carry it forward rested on his shoulders. He spent the rest of the day working with the 7 women, learning how to access the core and interpret the data. Each widow shared her own expertise. One knew the old farming techniques, another had insight into the star maps, a third was skilled in energy systems, and so on. Together, they guided him, teaching him patiently. As the sun began to set, Jace felt a strange sense of completion. He had seen visions of the past, glimpsed the future, and learned the ways of the ranch. And yet, there was one more revelation waiting for him. The core projected a message directly addressed to him. The words appeared in glowing letters. Jace Orion, the ranch chose you because you have the heart and mind to continue what I began, but the choice is yours. You may take this legacy forward, or you may walk away. Know this, the ranch remembers. It waits, and it will always honor those who care for it. Jace felt the weight of the message. For the first time, he understood the depth of the decision he faced. Accepting the ranch meant embracing a life of responsibility, creativity, and challenge. Walking away meant leaving behind not only land, but a legacy, a future, and 7 people who had devoted decades of their lives to preserving it. He looked at the 7 women standing around him, their expressions calm but expectant. They did not pressure him. They simply waited, trusting that he would make the right choice. Jace took a deep breath. I want to try, he said finally. I want to understand, to learn, to help the ranch grow. I don't know everything yet, but I want to do it. A faint smile spread across the woman with the glowing fingers. Then you are ready, she said. Ready to continue Orion's work, to unlock the secrets, and to shape the future of Red Mesa. The hologram shifted, showing Jace working side by side with the original Orion, the 7 women, and even himself in the future. He saw the ranch thriving, machines running efficiently, and desert plants blooming. The sense of connection, of belonging, was overwhelming. But the final projection held one more surprise. A star map appeared, pointing to a distant, abandoned space station in orbit above a nearby planet. The core's message was simple. The next step awaits you. The journey continues. Jace stared at the map. He had never flown a starship before. He didn't know what awaited him at the station. And yet, he felt a surge of determination. He had inherited more than a ranch. He had inherited a story, a legacy, and a challenge. And he would face it, not alone, but with the 7 women who had guided him and the ranch that had chosen him. That night, as Jace lay in bed, he thought about the choice he had made. The desert outside was quiet, but inside the ranch he felt life pulsing. Machines, memories, and possibilities all waiting for him. He realized that being Orion's heir was not just about responsibility. It was about discovery, courage, and trust. Trust in himself, in the ranch, and in the people who had kept the legacy alive. And as the stars glittered above Red Mesa, Jace Orion felt a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever known. He was no longer just a young man from Tarnissa Fourth. He was the heir to a ranch, a legacy, and a dream. And tomorrow, he would begin the next step of the journey, the one that would take him beyond the desert, into the stars, and into the full story of Orion's vision. The next morning, Jace Orion awoke with a sense of purpose. Red Mesa's sun was bright and warm, scattering golden light across the desert. The ranch seemed to hum with energy, almost as if it were alive. Jace stretched and looked out over the fields, remembering the glowing machines, the silver-leaf trees, and the lessons of the memory core from yesterday. He knew today would be different. The 7 women were already waiting for him on the porch. Each carried a small pack with supplies, star charts, and tools. Today, they said, he would take the ranch beyond its boundaries, for the first time in decades, on a journey to the abandoned space station the memory core had revealed. Jace felt excitement and nervousness swirl together. He had never flown a starship. He had never left Red Mesa, and yet he felt ready. The ranch had prepared him in ways he hadn't understood until now, and the 7 women would guide him. "Are you sure about this?" he asked the woman with the glowing fingers. She nodded. "The ranch has called you. This station holds the next piece of Orion's vision. You will learn what must be done to protect the ranch and its legacy." Jace followed them to a small hangar tucked behind the barn. Inside was a sleek starship, dusty but clearly well-maintained. Its hull shimmered under the sunlight, and faint hums of power came from its engines. "This is yours," said the oldest widow. Orion always believed that whoever inherited the ranch should also inherit the means to explore the stars. "This ship will take you to the station safely, and we will go with you." Jace swallowed and nodded. For the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility mixed with a thrill he had never known. He climbed into the cockpit and ran his hands over the controls. The 7 women followed him, and one of them began explaining the basic functions. To Jace's surprise, the ship responded intuitively to his thoughts and movements. It was almost as if it recognized him. "Ready?" asked the woman with silver streaks in her hair. Jace took a deep breath. Ready. The ship lifted off smoothly, the desert shrinking beneath them as the engines hummed. The wind, the sand, the mesas all disappeared behind them as Red Mesa became a glowing dot in the distance. Jace marveled at the sight. The stars stretched endlessly, and the abandoned space station appeared as a faint shape in the darkness of space, orbiting a distant planet. This station, said one of the women, was once a research hub. Orion used it to develop ideas too advanced for the ranch. But it was abandoned when communications were lost. Only now can it be restored. The journey was calm but thrilling. Jace guided the ship closer to the station, and as he did, the holographic systems inside the cockpit displayed the layout, showing which areas were safe, which rooms held information, and where old equipment could be reactivated. When they docked, the station was silent, floating in the darkness like a sleeping giant. Jace and the 7 women moved carefully through the corridors, guided by holographic markers left by the original Orion. The walls were lined with panels, some cracked with age, others glowing faintly with power still running through old circuits. In the central hub, Jace found the main control room. A large circular console waited in the center, surrounded by chairs and screens. The memory core on the ranch had prepared him for this moment. He approached the console and touched the surface. Immediately, holographic projections filled the room. Orion's voice, clear and calm, filled the space. Welcome, Jace Orion. You have taken the first step. Now you will learn the purpose of this station. It is more than a research hub. It is a center of ideas, energy, and connection. It is a gift and a responsibility for those who are ready to carry it forward. Jace watched in awe as the projections unfolded. He saw experiments Orion had conducted, machines that could purify water, grow crops, and generate energy for entire planets. He saw maps connecting Red Mesa to other planets, showing trade routes, research colonies, and ways to share resources across the galaxy. This is incredible, Jace whispered. All of this? Orion created this? Yes, said the woman with glowing fingers. And now it is your turn. The station and the ranch are one. What you learn here will help you unlock the ranch's full potential. For hours, Jace explored the station with the 7 women. Each room revealed new wonders, gardens growing in zero gravity, holographic libraries filled with data, machines that repaired themselves, and workstations designed for every kind of experiment. Jace realized that the ranch's technology had only been the beginning. The station was the key to a future of innovation, sustainability, and exploration. But the greatest revelation came when Jace accessed a final chamber at the heart of the station. There, a small pedestal held a crystal orb, glowing softly. When he touched it, a hologram of the original Orion appeared. Jace, the hologram said, you have proven yourself by coming here. The ranch, the station, and the 7 who have guided you, all of this is now entrusted you. Your task is not to copy me, but to learn, create, and guide. Protect what matters, share what you can, and know that the future is yours to shape. Jace felt a deep warmth in his chest. The words, the technology, the history, it all connected. He understood now that the ranch had chosen him not because he was perfect, but because he had the courage to learn, to listen, and to care. The 7 women smiled at him. You have done well, said the oldest, and now the true journey begins. Together, we will help you unlock the potential of the ranch and the station. As the day passed, Jace worked with them to reactivate systems, organize holographic archives, and chart ways to connect the ranch to neighboring planets. He felt a sense of belonging he had never known. The ranch, the station, and the women were not just guides. They were partners, and together they could create a future filled with hope, innovation, and connection. When the station's systems were fully operational, Jace stepped to the observation deck. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, and the desert planet of Red Mesa gleamed below. He could see the ranch as a small dot, glowing with life, connected to a network that spanned planets. This is amazing, Jace said softly. I never imagined anything like this. The woman with the glowing fingers placed a hand on his shoulder. And this is only the beginning. The ranch and the station will grow with you, just as you will grow with them. Remember, the legacy is not about following the past. It is about creating the future. Jace smiled, feeling a quiet confidence. For the first time, he truly believed he could do it. He could guide the ranch, unlock the station's secrets, and help others across the galaxy. And he would do it with the 7 women who had waited patiently for him, teaching him, supporting him, and sharing in the journey. As the stars shifted in the night sky above, Jace felt a sense of peace. The mysteries of the ranch had been revealed, the memory core had shown him the past, the station had prepared him for the future, and the 7 women had given him the knowledge, patience, and trust he needed. He realized that the ranch had not just chosen him, it had shaped him. And now, with the station ready, the ranch thriving, and the women by his side, Jace Orion was ready to lead, innovate, and explore. That night, as they all gathered in the observation deck, Jace looked out at the galaxy. The stars seemed closer now, more real, full of possibilities. He felt the gentle pulse of the ranch and the station beneath him, as if they were alive and watching him with quiet approval. The 7 women each placed their hands lightly on the console. "To the future," said the woman with silver streaks in her hair. Jace nodded. "To the future," he echoed. And as the station floated silently above the desert planet, the ranch below glowing with life, Jace Orion felt something he had never known, the quiet joy of purpose, connection, and belonging. The journey was only beginning, but he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with courage, curiosity, and the knowledge that he was part of something far greater than himself. The ranch, the station, the stars, and the 7 women had all become his family, and together they would write the next chapter of Orion's legacy, one filled with discovery, hope, and the quiet magic of possibilities waiting to be uncovered. For the first time in his life, Jace Orion felt at home.